Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. So, the guest I have on today is growing at a massive pace. Maybe it's because he's worked with some of the biggest names in the online industry, like Gary Vee or Alex Hormozi, but now he is on the path of creating his own business and helping entrepreneurs the way he knows how. I have with me Caleb Ralston. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, you are growing at a massive pace, and actually, I think you're proving you're doing things that a lot of people have never done before. So, you only have to date, at the time of this recording, 7 videos on YouTube, over 50,000 subscribers. And it's because of the quality of the content you're putting out. And I just checked today, when a couple weeks ago you had 93,000 followers on Instagram, now you're at 100,000 even. You're obviously doing something right. But before all of this, getting into the brand space and building businesses, there was an origin. So what got you into wanting to come into the brand space?
I am your classic story of the kid with the camera that I took my mom's camera, actually, is the reality of it. And my sister and I, growing up, we would make fun little skits in the backyard, just silly sketches and stuff like that. And then buddies and I, we started making little fun films at each other's houses, and we would post it on YouTube. And this is like right when YouTube first was like a thing. And I just started to realize like I really like video. And the church that I was going to at the time, I got wildly lucky that the director of video at the church was Sean Cannell. And Sean Cannell, if you're not familiar with him, he runs Think Media, a really large publisher and creator online that teaches a lot of people how to make content. And Sean took me under his wing and really invested in me, gave me a lot of opportunities. I was the director, not really, I was never director, but I ran all of the video announcements for the junior high youth group and started making some of the video announcements for even the big boys, the high schoolers. And that was really cool. And then Sean one day gave me this book, which is I say this sometimes because I think it's funny, the director of video at my church gave me a book by a man who swears more than I do. And
that's great.
Yeah, his name's Gary Vaynerchuk, and he wrote the book Crush It. And I remember very vividly sitting in the living room in my parents' home and having the book, the black and green, and 99.999% of people have no idea who I am or my backstory. I never liked reading, so much so that I didn't read in high school, any of the books. But the only book that I did read front to back was Crush It. And I remember in the book, Gary was talking about people are going to make a full-time living talking about the Smurfs. And I thought, okay, if people can do that with the Smurfs, I could probably do it with powerlifting and bodybuilding. Mm. And so I just started taking action and making content and went from filming training videos with my dad to all of a sudden starting to close. And I say close, I mean, they were like $200 training videos. It was nothing insane, but I was doing training videos with a lot of the top bodybuilders in the space. Mm-hmm. And I just started to realize this is something that I have a lot of work to grow in, for sure. I was like 15 years old, but it felt like something that was kind of that beautiful alignment of a good opportunity and moment in time, and something that I was interested in growing my skill set on.
So you really resonated with video.
Yeah.
Being behind the camera.
Yeah, definitely behind the camera. Every once in a while, I would do these little vlogs that are unfortunately still out on the internet. I don't have access to that YouTube channel anymore, so I cannot unlist them. So you can see the journey if you really, really dig.
Which people actually really do enjoy the journey. They like seeing the start to the come up to where you're at now. So when was it that you started working with Gary?
I started working for Gary indirectly in 2017 for a company that he owns called PureWow. It's a women's lifestyle publisher. He had just recently, I think within a year or so of me starting, he had purchased the company and brought it into the VaynerX portfolio, now known as Gallery Media Group. And I literally, I remember like it was yesterday, hounding Mr. David Rock for an opportunity, D-Rock as most people know him. And Gary had posted on his Instagram story that he was looking to hire creatives and that you should email D-Rock if you're interested. And I remember I didn't see it. My best friend Jordan actually sent me a screenshot of it. And for whatever reason, I felt like the tingles or whatever, my spidey senses were going off and it felt like the right thing to act on. And so I just relentlessly kept emailing David until I got a hold of him. And then I was presented with 2 opportunities. There was Vayner Talent, which is kind of like, it was Team Gary and those kind of services, personal brand and content creation for external clients. So there was that option, or there was PureWow. And I came from a really small town. I was living in Bellingham, Washington, grew up in Arlington, Washington. And I grew up in an area where everything was kind of small town America is how I would put it. And I worked in a software company, which was all bros. Like literally, I don't know what the statistics are now, but it was probably 99.9% male. And PureWow was like 99% female. And I would have had a
Polar opposites,
woman
wow.
boss. And so, yeah, I was looking for a different experience. I also wanted to learn how to communicate to middle-aged, middle America women. That was the target demo. And I figured that would be a really good audience to be able to learn how to communicate to.
How old were you at this time?
It's somewhere like 23, 24, something like that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Pretty recent then.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very recent. And I was given the opportunity, chose PureWow, and 2 weeks later, I was moving from Bellingham, Washington to Brooklyn, New York.
Nice. Wow. And then that's when you started working with Gary Vee on his brand and building his brand and just...
Well, I started at PureWow and
PureWow.
did that for 9 months.
Okay.
And there's actually on my Instagram page, there's a pinned post. It's like a side profile photo of Gary with a tweet that I had tweeted him when I was in high school. And then you scroll over, and it's actually footage of my first meeting with Gary. He's talked about this in public content all the time, but he's really big on meeting with the people in VaynerMedia, the employees. Mm-hmm. He is the busiest CEO executive I've ever seen in my lifetime, a million, no competition.
He really likes to be there with the people.
Yeah, he's still, even being that busy, makes time.
So
now, they're
important.
5-minute increments.
Yeah.
So it was a 5-minute meeting. But the footage is up on my Instagram where I'm meeting with him and I tell him how grateful I am for everything that he's done, all that stuff, full circle moment. And he invited me to hang out with Team Gary after hours. He was like, I know you're at PureWow, but from 5 to 10, my team is up here and we're working. And if you come up and hang out, we'll give you projects to work on. And in the moment, I'm like, I mean, you can imagine, I grew up watching this guy. I'm doing what I'm doing for a living mainly because of him. And he's inviting me to hang out with his team. I'm like freaking out. My heart rate's through the roof. My hands are all sweaty.
From reading his book
Yeah.
to now actually in the space with him.
Yeah, in a room talking to him. It was insane. But then I remember taking the subway home and the next couple of days thinking about the fact that I was raised a certain way. And there's like a biblical principle that I always butcher, that I won't get correct. But basically, it's like being a good steward with what you're given. And I was thinking about it, and I was like...
It kind of talks about the parable of the talents.
Yeah,
Just-
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not exactly familiar with what you're talking about with the parable of the talents. But
So God will give somebody talents like blessings, and it's your job to go out and multiply it. And if you don't, then he'll take it away from you.
yes.
Yeah.
And the story of the different guys burying it. And
That's
yeah,
it.
okay,
That's
I
the
know what
one.
you're talking about. Yeah. I felt like this was something that this was an opportunity I was given, and that I should be a good steward with that opportunity. And so instead of doing something that felt like it was a good short-term tactic in order to get what I wanted, I felt like I was hired to work at PureWow, and my discretionary effort going towards Team Gary, yeah, that'll be cool and stuff. I don't know if it will be as impactful as the discretionary effort going towards PureWow and content there.
Got it.
And so I decided to double down on PureWow and not try and distract myself with anything else. And 9 months in, throughout the whole time I had been updating David D-Rock on kind of how things were going, asking him questions. And 9 months in, him and Andy Kranek, who used to be the head of Team Gary at the time, they tapped my shoulder and said, hey, can you come upstairs? We'd like to meet with you. And they said, we know you're going on a trip to go back home and visit family. When you come back, we would like you to be on Team Gary, if you're down. I was like, down? Of course I'm down. Like, start me yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Wow.
And then I joined, and something that I like to clarify too is, and I totally understand it, I do some podcasts here and there, and people will package it like the man behind Gary Vee and blank. And like, I get it. We can't make titles these like crazy long things, but to be very clear, I joined Team Gary 3 years into Team Gary being a thing. I did not start Team Gary. Like, that's Andy, Sid, David, like all these other characters that came far before me. Mm-hmm. When I joined, we were still doing Daily V, so I got the amazing opportunity to travel with Gary a ton, film a lot of those episodes, edit those. When TikTok became a thing, when Musical.ly sold to ByteDance, he got really serious about that, wanted to go hard on TikTok, so I had the opportunity to channel manage that. Mm-hmm. We did trash talk and a lot of cool things, but I definitely would say I learned how to build a brand from Gary, not in any way, shape, or form the other way around.
Okay, so let's talk about what building a brand is.
Yeah.
I'm sure the shorter question would be, what is not a brand?
I think, I don't even want to say that it's not a brand, but I think people get hung up on the aesthetic, the color palette, the logo, even your tagline and things like that. They say things, and there's nothing wrong with this because this is part of it, but they'll classify brand as the feeling that people have when your name is brought up or whatever. And I think that is a way of describing how I define brand. So I wouldn't say it's wrong. I just think that it isn't as useful. It doesn't give people a directive of what to do, right? It's describing it as this thing, but it gives you no actions or steps to take to actually build yours.
Okay. And that's going to lead me to the other question, the opposite side of the question.
Yeah.
What is a brand? When somebody watches your content, if they're to sit and watch your content for the first 5 minutes, what should you be saying to build that brand and that relationship with your client through your content?
Yeah. I believe that branding is the action. And so I define good branding as an intentional pairing of relevant things done consistently. And then I believe that brand is the byproduct. So we have the action, and then the result of that action is brand. And that is, I believe, when your audience associates you and something else together. When it's done well, they're associating you and the thing that you're intentionally pairing yourself with. So the example that I like to use all the time is Nike and Michael Jordan. We all know this one. This is the most iconic one probably to date. The key here that a lot of people just gloss over is the reason why Nike and Michael Jordan built the brand they did within basketball is not because he wore the shoes during the championship or during the All-Star game. He wore those shoes every freaking game, night after night, year after year. And it was consistently pairing greatness in basketball with Nike, right?
Because he always wore it.
Yeah. And so the example that I'm going to share right now, for anybody who's consumed my content, you're going to laugh, but I do my best in every single piece, interview, like a podcast interview like this, or our original content that we host on our channels. I do my darndest to get in my big core belief, which is that I believe that people should optimize their personal brand around trust, not virality. I try to repeat that over and over and over as much as I can. In a world where a lot of people come to me with objections around making content of like, I don't want to say the same shit over and over. I want to be able to say new things. That's actually the exact opposite of what you want to do.
Yeah.
A great example of this is, like you called out earlier, we've only put out 7 videos on my YouTube channel. It's not a lot. Like, it's a lot, as in Trevor and I have put a lot of effort into all 7.
But your message is really fine-tuned in those 7 videos.
I would agree, and I wouldn't have been able to confidently say that to you until this last week. We put out a video a week and a half ago. It's called something to the effect of like the best brand strategies by audience size. And then we go through 0 to 100K, 100K to $1 million, $1 million to 10 million. And a comment that popped up, which I love, and whoever left that comment, I love the hell out of you. They commented, this video is too boring to ever hit 1 million views. It needs to be more entertaining. If you think the only entertaining thing is changing the scene, then like you're wrong or whatever. And they're right. They're 100% correct. They're just not understanding what my intention is. And before I could go in and even respond, there were 6 other people that jumped in. They're like, don't you know what he's optimizing for? And that was like a huge moment to me of like, oh shit.
You have fans, people who understand the content.
Yeah. There are homies who consume the shit. I feel weird saying fans. I don't know if I could ever use that word for myself, but I agree with you. That's what it's typically labeled as. But like, there's people that understand what my brand is about this early on. And I think more than ever before, I've been very intentional rather than in the past when I've been working for people or working with a client. I wasn't as like hard about this, but in our content, we talk about all the time, how do we continue to mention this core belief that we have that is different than the majority of people in our space? You know, like you consume the content, the majority of people talking about brand and content strategy, they all tell you the 10 viral hooks to use. And that's great. That's awesome. That's just not what I'm doing. And the cool thing is by consistently pairing myself with that idea, the audience is now inherently associating me and that idea, that value together.
That's amazing.
And that's brand.
That's amazing. You released a 6-hour course on YouTube, and then you attached it with a workbook.
Yeah.
So I was able to do most of the course.
You're wild.
I was
Thank
able
you.
to do most of it. It was so impactful. But I think the thing that I really resonated with was probably in the first like 10 minutes, you said there's got to be something you don't stand for, and there's got to be something you stand for.
Yeah.
Why is that so important?
I mean, there's a million reasons, but I'll give you a couple. One, I think people don't know how to decide what opportunities to take on or not take on, given the brand they're trying to build. So what I mean by that is, if you determine what you want your brand, what these associations you want your audience to draw upon when they think of your brand, you get a good, clear idea of what you should aim towards, like what you should do. The problem is I think a lot of people only focus, if they hear me, they get really fixated on that, and they miss a really crucial point, which is also identifying what do you want to be known as being against. And if you define that, it gives you an incredible decision-making framework to understand whether or not you should go on somebody's podcast, speak at this event, take on this client, publicly pair yourself with this individual. Because the reality is every single pairing with ideas or people that you intentionally make or unintentionally make online adds to the filter that everyone sees your brand through, right? So like, it's almost, if we go back to high school and we're sitting in the cafeteria, what table we sit at and what group of people we sit with, that indicates to everybody else who this person is. Now, I haven't been in high school for a second, so I don't know if that's how it is now. But it was when I was a kid. Like if I sat, and I was weird. I was into all these different worlds. I liked metal and goth. I also loved basketball. I liked powerlifting. I liked history. I liked video and was like an artsy kid or whatever. And so whoever you pair yourself with, that shapes the lens or the filter that everyone sees your brand through. And if you don't define what you are against, then you're more likely to take on opportunities that actually pair you with something that, without you realizing it, is moving you further away from your goal. It helps me determine what podcasts I'm going to say yes to or say no to.
Yeah.
There's been a lot that I've said yes to, but there's also a lot that I'm not going to do. It's not that person, their brand is inherently wrong. I am definitely not God, and I do not determine what is right or wrong. It's not that when you determine what values or what things you want to be known for and against, that means that the things you're against are wrong and evil. It's just that they're wrong for you. My values are my values, not anybody else's. You know? And I think that's another key, is it's very easy to then jump to the other side where you start demonizing it. It's no, everyone should do you, boo-boo. That's great. I just want to be very intentional with what I am crafting.
Yeah, I really do agree and resonate with the idea of the social circle. I think people really do affiliate you based on who you're talking to, who you hang out with. And if you hang out with that group or person long enough, you start taking on some of their habits and their qualities, whether you like it or not. So, I mean, that would be very true. I can't remember the names, but I do know there's been some artists in Hollywood where they would start off doing great and they start hanging out with a different kind of crowd, and all of a sudden their careers just plummet. And it's just, how's that saying go? The birds of a feather flock together.
Yeah.
And you start to just really bring on some of those good or bad attributes from those people. So totally get it.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about virality and then content that converts. So you want to be known for making content that converts, not virality, because virality really is just all about vanity metrics.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, there's nothing wrong with going viral. I think going viral is great. And I think for a lot of people, it can be a big impact for their business, and it can be wonderful. The trap that people fall into is either they've never gone viral and that's all they're ever trying to get. And so they optimize and they think about their content about what is going to get the most views, not what's going to solve my ideal customer's problem. Right there, me saying it makes it sound really obvious for people, but like that's the reality, right? If you're optimizing for virality, you're going to make content that you think is going to get the most amount of eyeballs, not the most qualified eyeballs.
Not
right?
what you want.
Right, exactly. And to be very clear, I don't make content for people that are trying to go into the entertainment space. I do not make content for people that are trying to gain mass awareness for any other reasons. Like, there are people that are way better at that than me. What I speak to is anyone who is trying to build a personal brand to impact their business.
Yes.
And actually create transactions with their audience on a monetary basis, not just their time.
Yeah, a lot of people are actually moving in that direction because virality doesn't pay the bills. But content that resonates, where it gets the phone ringing, does. And I think especially now that there's so many content creators and using social media for business, they're really understanding, like, I've got to get my content dialed in.
Yeah.
So in your opinion, let's say we've got a business owner who's has a nail salon and she wants to get the phone ringing. What kind of content should she be making where people say, I'm going to call Miss Ling Ling to get my nails done?
If we're trying to make content to drive conversions for a nail salon, one, I'm going to just like always qualify. I have not dug deep into this industry. And so I would need to do a lot more research to understand everything. But a couple of things that I would immediately say is I know that a lot of women are frustrated with the fact that they get their nails done and within 2 days it chips, cracks, whatever, right? Another big thing that I know that is emerging is like the material or the ingredients in some of these gels. There's more information coming out about how the gels are actually, like certain gels are very toxic and very, very bad for your skin and your health and all of that. And so I would probably take those two main pain points and I would speak to them in my content. I would describe how the materials that I'm using are organic and all those wonderful things, less likely to chip. I would also make content about how to reduce the likelihood that your nails are going to chip. So like, are there little things that you can do? I'd probably play into it. Any man listening to this is probably going to laugh when I say this, or anybody actually, honestly. Men get their nails done too. I know my girlfriend, whenever she goes to the nail salon, she comes back and she'll go to like open a can of soda or something like that and immediately stop herself and be like, hey, can you open this for me? So I'd probably play into those little moments.
It's a universal woman thing, I think.
Yeah. But at a high level, the kind of the principle that I like to think about, and I deal more in the educational space, less the entertainment space. And what we're describing, I might actually end up leaning more into entertainment content, which is out of my wheelhouse, really. If we go from an educational standpoint, the frame that I want people to think through is you just want to solve problems for people. And you want to make it as easy as possible for them to take action on the solution you're providing so that they solve their own problem. It's my opinion that if in my content, I make it easier for you to solve a problem, you take action on what Caleb said, you do it, you get the outcome you wanted, you trust me more.
That's their social proof.
Right.
Okay.
Trust, I think, is very like simple. Like I have a truck that I push a button when the brake is pressed and it starts. I trust it. If I go out to my truck for 3 mornings in a row and do the same action, but it doesn't start, I trust it less. And so I know I've been told you press the brake and you hit this and I get the outcome I want. But if all of a sudden that stops happening, I'm not going to trust as much. So it is my opinion that as an educator, you want to do everything that you can to make it as easy as possible for somebody to take action, get that problem solved. And the beauty of business, you know this, the moment you solve one problem, you become keenly aware of the next one, right? And so the best case scenario is to figure out what is your offer, what problem does it solve, and what is the problem that precedes that problem, a smaller one, right? Another example that I like to use is people who are on the journey of trying to lose weight and maybe they're overweight, they might be less likely to care about optimizing their hormone levels and the vitamins in their blood. But once somebody starts getting to a point where they're working out multiple times a week, they're tracking their macros, eating really clean, healthy, they've gotten fit, they might now really care about their hormone levels and the vitamin deficiencies they have in their blood work, right? You're probably not going to sell somebody on blood work analysis or whatever when they're on that journey of trying to lose their first 60 pounds, right? So maybe that's the problem that precedes the offer that you have. Like, for example, if I'm trying to sell brand positioning for somebody, well, brand positioning doesn't matter to somebody who has never made content and hasn't even started. I believe that they could use it at the beginning, but they're not going to believe that they need it. They need to start making content, right? And so what I could do to try and get more people into this offer is I could make free content on how to start a personal brand to get that going. And then it reveals, okay, I'm making content, I've started, how do I stand out now? Oh, that's where my offer, that's how I like to think
Problem
about
to the solution.
it. Exactly.
Yeah.
And And the beauty is then that just is on repeat over and over and over.
I mean, that's why Apple has all these different products, because they create a product and all of a sudden you need something else for that product, and you buy that product and you need something else for it. They create the solution, but that solution has its own problem.
Yeah, they're assholes about it though, because they're always changing. I mean, it's like, lightning cable and then USB-C. I don't know what's next.
But it's a good business model. They got it right. Yeah, they got it. So okay, now let's say somebody has followed your teachings and they took your course and they're working with you on creating their brand. What is the danger of somebody, they've got their brand on Instagram and YouTube, but now they want to start talking about other things? What are the dangers of talking about two things on one platform?
Dangers. I'll put it this way. I think there's, in every area of life, there's the perfect ideal version, and then there's reality. The perfect ideal version is that we only ever talk about one thing ever, always, on each platform for each account. That's the way that the platforms prefer it, right? In a world where back in the day when it was follow-based content, you could just talk about whatever you want because people were consuming content based on the creator. Now it's interest-based media. Gary's been talking about this for a couple of years now, right? It's no longer social media, it's interest media. And so in a world where the algorithms, and I don't pretend to know the algorithms because they change all the time, and that's a full-time job that a lot of people do better than me. But at a high level, the algorithms are now serving you content based on what you show interest in, right? So as a side note, for anybody complaining about their feed, that's your fault. It's not the platform. You are training it on what you want to consume. But the problem with splitting your topics is suddenly the platform has less ability to know, who do I serve this new topic to, right? This person's never talked about this. We initially want the content to go to the audience that they've already been serving content to, but that audience is not resonating with this. Some algorithms are more sophisticated and they find their way there. Some, it just dies. So the number one thing that I would say is lower your expectations if you're going to do it. Understand that you are not doing things according to the best practices of the platform. And that's okay. But the problem is people have these like wildly unrealistic expectations. So if you want to add something into your content, the first thing that I would encourage you to do is ask yourself, why? Why do I need to do this? If the answer is that you feel compelled to share this message with the world and you have to do it, okay, cool. I won't fight you on that one. If the answer is that you have become an expert in this thing over the last couple of years, right? For example, people that start making content online might be talking about business strategies, for example, but then after 2 or 3 years of making content online, they might also be really good at content strategy. So they add that into their repertoire. Cool. The next question is, does it serve your audience, your ideal customer? And if the answer is yes, then I would argue do it, even at the detriment of lower views and engagement or whatever. But what I find a lot of people end up doing is they add a topic because they think it's going to get more attention or whatever. It's about what they can grab rather than what they can give to the audience. So something that I try to be very careful about, and you're not really probably going to see me deviate too much for a while. I'm not going to make content about my productivity hacks. I might make a productivity piece on how to be productive in a film session, right? Because that's still in my, but I'm not going to make a video on how I run my calendar and my morning routine and stuff. Nobody gives a shit about that from me. There's a world where Trevor and I could be easily tempted to do that because almost anybody who does a well done morning routine post murders. But I just don't find that useful or valuable for my audience.
Yeah.
So a lot of what you'll notice that I talk about is it always comes back to them, the audience. Now, something that we were just talking about the other day, literally yesterday, I think, is like, when I'm an old man, it'll be fun to make Harley videos and like just completely like deviate from brand strategy and content strategy, and I'll just do fun, long videos of me on a motorcycle trip. And Trevor and I were kind of nerding out about how we would do it and stuff, and I was like, oh man, that sounds kind of fun. If I were to do that, I would not integrate it into my current channels. I would start completely separate channels.
Like a personal channel.
Yeah, because it'd be to get that creative need out there, to scratch that creative itch. And I think that's the case for the majority of people that add something new, is oftentimes it's their own need to scratch a creative itch or to keep them interested in making content, which I love, but I would argue you're probably best off creating a new channel for that.
You're probably confusing your audience. Your audience, like, so are they still doing this service or are they moving away from that? So I can imagine how it does confuse the audience that you're trying to capture.
Yeah, something that might resonate with your audience is if you think about your content strategy similar to how you think about an offer. If I have an offer to help you build your brand, and then I also have an offer to help you build an espresso stand, that is going to be wildly confusing. And arguably, a lot of people would be like, is that two different people? They're both named Caleb, but there's no way that they're related. Mm-hmm. You got interesting moments like Mr. Joe Rogan, who he talks about wildly different topics, and he covers that. But I think that for where you're getting at and your listeners, I don't think that is a good strategy. Not in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you worked with anybody who just gets tired of saying the same thing over and over again? And is there a fresh way that you can get them to say the same thing in a different light?
The answer is yes. Almost everybody. Everybody always making content hits a point where they're like, oh my God, really? The thing is, you do want to continue saying the same shit over and over, the same principles, values, ideas, concepts, but here's where you can keep some variety and interest in it. If you are actually still doing the thing that you're talking about, which you should be, otherwise you're no longer an expert in my opinion. If you are doing the thing and you're in it, you're presented with new scenarios all the time. If you have clients, for example, you're constantly telling your clients and answering the same 8 to 12 questions. It's always the same. Like, I've met with many business owners.
Across every industry, this is the same
Every
thing.
industry in Spain, in Australia, in Arlington, Texas, like all over the place. And it's always the same 8 to 12 questions. It just has a lot of nuance to the variables around it. Is it a people problem with a team of 20? Is it a people problem with your contractor? Like, it's always the same core things. And so that's beautiful. That's how your content should be. Your content should be around those 8 to 12 core things, but the variety or way that you're able to do it in a new way every time is you're telling the stories about how you helped Sarah finish or fix this problem. Then you're talking about how you helped Angelina fix this other one. And it might be the same exact core principle, but they're different scenarios, different people, right? And that, in my opinion, is the best way to make content. To still be in it so that you have those stories to draw upon and you're not having to like make shit up.
Yeah. So when you were helping Alex and Leila grow their brand, what were some directions that you were giving them to get them, actually I should go backwards. When did you start working with them? And then how did you start tweaking their content?
I think it was May 2022. And when I started, I was media team employee number 1. Everything was them working with vendors, awesome vendors. And so I just started learning what all of these processes were, and I was tasked with the goal of bringing everything in-house, which in the beginning, for any content directors, brand directors, creative directors out there, you'll resonate with this. What that means in the beginning is you're doing a lot of that because you bring it in-house, do the process, understand how it goes, and then you hire based off of the needs, the constraints, the deficits, right? That's how we started. And I would say less directive, more reverse engineering and building a system to accommodate each individual's preferences and skill sets. The best piece of advice that Gary has given me long ago, and he talks about sometimes in content here and there, is not trying to replicate the team function process system that he had with Team Gary, but instead reverse engineering the skills and deficits and preferences of anybody that you're building this for. Because everybody is wildly different. For example, I'm sure you've witnessed this over the years. Many people try the Gary Vee approach of having a videographer follow them around all day and capturing content. The problem that most people don't realize is Gary's brain works in sound bites. The man talks in sound bites, in quotes, in tweets. It's fucking wild. Sorry, I was really trying not to drop any F-bombs. I think that might be the first one, though, so that's actually really good for me. It's insane. Like in meetings where there's not a camera around, he still communicates that way. That's how he thinks. And so having a camera around lends itself well to that because you're constantly getting banger moments.
But not everyone's like that.
I would argue 99% of people are not.
Yeah.
I would go as far as to say 99.9% are not that interesting. Because not only do they not speak in sound bites, they're sitting in front of their computer at the desk in the same spot all day. Mm-hmm. Gary has a ton of movement. He's 5-minute meetings, right? Like sometimes 2-minute meetings. He's got people in and out of his office. Then he's hopping over to meet with somebody over at Fifth Avenue. And then he's running to the airport to fly to Florida for an event. And then
he's always on.
Yeah. And tapped in and all these different things. The biggest mistake that people make is they look at these characters that we're talking about and try to replicate what they have done.
And you can't do that. You really can't try to be Gary V #2.
Yeah, you will fail miserably. Yeah, it is a terrible strategy to try to take on. I'd say it was less directive and more understanding the preferences, the time available, right? Like Leila's operating the business. And so she doesn't have that much time. So there's a completely different system for that versus Alex, who was dedicating more time, not all of his time by any means, but a greater percentage of his time to content creation. Mm-hmm. And so it's for anybody that is listening or watching, the principle or the takeaway for you is ignore what you hear all of these top gurus and top industry people saying that they're doing, right? That does not work. It's so known in so many other industries. Athletics is the number one. Doing what a top athlete does in their prime every day is a terrible idea while you're on your come up.
Yeah.
You need to look at, and I sound so like a typical trope because it's what everybody says, but it's true. You need to look at what they were doing on their way up, not once they were already up. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the big mistake.
Now, let's say you're working with somebody and they've never made content before and they don't have this belief in them, but they know they got to create the brand. How do you assist them with that?
Well, I am on the journey of gaining more clarity in my own brand, in my skills and my offers. And so I actually it's very rare that I work with somebody who hasn't made content. Because what I've realized about myself is I am not a fire starter. I am gasoline it can be a small flame. I just need a flame. If there's a flame, I'm gas on that and we will create a bizzling
And that's
fire.
amazing that you know exactly who you want to serve.
Slowly but surely, I've worked for these people that talk about getting very clear on who your ideal customer is, what your offer is. But it's funny, you can hear it all day, every day, but sometimes, unfortunately, you got to go through. Luckily, we're at month 10 of business, so I think we're getting it in early and stuff. But if I am sitting down with somebody who has never made content before, the number one thing that I'm going to ask them is, I am going to try and jump to brand positioning exercises that I like to run people through, which is first figuring out the brand journey framework. Why are you doing this? Because there's going to be a good percentage of people that if I had this conversation with them, we might leave the conversation being like, you shouldn't make content. Mm-hmm. Or pause on this journey until you figure out a really good reason why you're making it.
How important is the why?
It's the most important thing. I don't want to sound like your typical person talking about the why, because that's also a really well-known thing. And I think Simon Sinek has absolutely murdered that, and he dominates explaining the importance behind why. What I will add to it is, it gives you the only way to measure whether or not this is working. Am I moving closer to accomplishing that why or further, right? The most tragic thing that I hear a lot of business owners say 2 years into making content is I'll ask them, how's it going? Oh, it's fun, it's cool or whatever. But if I'm really being real, I don't even know if it's working. I'm like, holy shit, that is a bummer, right? Mm-hmm. That is a real bummer in my opinion. And so the brand journey framework allows us to figure out, why are we doing this? What's the outcome that you want to have happen? That's the first question I ask. The second question is, what would you have to be known for in order for that outcome to happen? What would you have to be known for to get that goal achieved? Number 3, the third question is, in order to be known for the thing to get the outcome I want, what would I have to do? We get known for things. Our reputation is built not just by talking, but by actually doing shit, right? Mm-hmm. And then the last question brings us to today, which gives you, I call it the brand journey framework. I'm realizing lately I should probably call it the brand journey roadmap. The last question is, in order to do the things, to be known for the thing, to get the outcome I want, what do I need to learn? If I am a woman who wants to speak on stage and inspire young women to build a business, I probably need to be known as a woman who has built a business successfully. and probably not just mine, but helped other women do the same thing. How would I be known for that? I'd have to build a successful business as a woman and help other women build their successful businesses.
Show the receipts.
Right. But then the beauty of this whole framework is, in order to build a successful business, I'm going to have to learn HR, sales, marketing, fulfill all these different things. And within each department, there are hundreds, thousands of skills that you got to learn. And so that gives you the roadmap from right now to your desired outcome. Once you have that clear and you have clarity on that, desired outcome becomes a frame that you make decisions against. Back to what I was talking about, the associations thing. If I want to be somebody that is trusted in the space for delivering actual useful value, not taking advantage of people, that is going to give me an incredible frame of what podcasts I say yes and no to. If somebody has a reputation online of doing the opposite of what I just articulated, I'm not going to go on their podcast because that's going to move me further away. So I think a lot of people need clarity on why they're doing this. I think it gives you the ability to define whether or not you're moving closer or further, right? And then secondly, the next thing I'm going to tell them is I believe there's 3 levers to stand out. And I think the first one is the most important. Not all of us can have it. Definitely not all of us know what it is on day one. So for some of you, you might not be able to identify what this is, but I would challenge you, what is your view or belief of the world or industry that you are in that is different, fundamentally different than what your peers are saying, what all the competition is saying?
Why is that so important?
It's the only reason why you cut through the noise. Like you were very gracious and kind in the front saying that the content's doing really well. However you want to look at it, it is performing the way that it is, in my opinion, not because we're packaging the videos in some crazy way. Our titles and thumbnails, they're pretty on the nose. They're pretty basic. They're not like the Mr. Beastification of packaging or anything like that, or at least not usually. I believe the reason why the content is resonating is because 99% of people that talk about what I talk about tell you that you need to get millions of views, that you need to go viral, and that's what you need to optimize for.
And it does sound exhausting.
Yeah. And I just talk about optimizing for trust. And that is literally, that is black in a world of white.
I think people are starving for trust right now. Like, trust and authenticity is the new currency.
Yeah.
And if somebody can trust you through their content, they're going to call you.
I'd like to think so. And that's what we're seeing so far with our content. And that's what I've seen in many organizations that I've been in-house at in the past, is that the more problems that you solve for your ideal customer, the more they trust you.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
So I do want to tell you, I took inspiration from one of your videos where you said that you have to basically say what you stand for. In one of my posts that I pinned on Instagram, I was like thinking, what would I want to see if I was visiting somebody's page and then I go and I start reading on their carousel? Well, I was like, I'm going to post what I think really needs to be said. The number one thing I posted was, if my 10-year-old son can't watch the content, it will not be posted. Because it's not only inappropriate to the adult eyes, but inappropriate for the youth. I got 3 clients from that.
That's amazing.
Because I was like, I think that, number one, I'm in a business where you should be professional.
Yeah.
And we're seeing the opposite of that right now in real estate. And I'm thinking, like, you guys, you're just making the competition so much easier for me.
Understood. I hear you loud and clear. Yep.
And so many people, the people I wanted,
Yeah.
are resonating with that.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that came from watching your content.
That's so cool. Thanks for sharing that. But more thanks for actually taking action on it. That's really cool.
Yeah, and I do think the evidence that we need to believe in ourselves does come from the actions.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You got to take the actions. So I should say I really had a great assumption that you knew exactly what you were talking about in all your content. And then obviously this conversation just summed it up, that you really are an expert and a master in your craft. You really do know what you're talking about. You explain it so well. You break down a brand, everything. And there are some people, they just oversimplify or they overcomplicate what a brand is to the point where people don't even take action. And I took action because you made it easy for me to take action.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you for putting it out. But I want to ask you 3 questions.
Let's do it.
Question 1.
I was supposed to think about this. Damn it.
I gave you
totally
time.
got sidetracked.
Gave you time
do
before
it.
the podcast. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I don't think about this nearly as much as I think a lot of people do. Here's why. I'll explain why. I used to do the 5-year, 10-year plan pretty in depth. And my life has been wildly different than every plan that I've had. And I can't even predict a year from now, let alone 5 years from now. So here's what I will say. I know the kind of person that I want to be in 5 years. I know the values that I want to be stronger in, not weaker in. I know what I want people to associate me with. And so I think for me right now, and this could change at any moment, I am not one of those concrete written in stone kind of guys. I believe that the moment I stop evolving and adapting and changing my beliefs is the moment that I should just call it quits, because life is about that. But I believe if I understand the values and the kind of person that I want to be and rough ideas of financial outcomes, whatever, opportunities for Kate and Trevor on my team, I define what actions I need to take to make it more likely that I have the options available to me that I want in 5 years. I don't know if that makes sense. This is a thing that I don't talk about it a lot, so I haven't spent a lot of time like figuring out how to articulate it in the best way. But I believe that life is freaking crazy.
It sure is.
It changes all the time, new opportunities. I mean, like, there's some brands that we're working with in year one that, like, I thought it was going to take a while to get their attention, and they were reaching out to us. Like, it's insane. And so I just believe right now my current mode of operating is I want to take the actions and do the things that increase my opportunities, not decrease it down the road. And so what that looks like is like the way that we go about monetizing the audience, even being very thoughtful with those choices, because I don't want to just cash in right now and hurt my ability to earn money 3, 4, 5 years from now.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just taking actions that increase my optionality down the road.
You think a lot of people really do hurt their status or their growth because they start focusing on that vanity metric?
Yeah, I think what it is, a lot of times people get really, and I'm one of the most competitive people I know, but they get really competitive, not with themselves, but with other people they see in the space. And they start like developing this very strange, I gotta beat so-and-so or whatever. And meanwhile, they don't know what's going on in the back end, right? They have no idea what the actual details are, what it looks like actually under the hood. And yeah, I think I'm going to a completely different point here, but I think that what you optimize around is an incredibly important thing to get dialed. And if you're optimizing around views, that's going to lead you one way. If you're optimizing around beating the competition, that's going to end up one way. If you optimize around trust, I define trust, you're just going to be continually serving your audience better and better and better. And the other two, I'm sure, are effective as well. I just know for a fact the one that I'm optimizing around is effective. I've seen it for years now. And now I've gone from being behind the scenes, being a part of the system that builds that, to now doing it for myself. And I couldn't be more convinced.
I agree with you 100%. Trust is the thing that people are just wanting so badly because you can't trust anything anymore.
No.
Especially with AI on the rise, you have no idea what's true.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my feed's getting wild with, I have no idea if this is a human or not. And now Sora, too. I mean, it's like all kinds of craziness.
Yeah, I have to go straight to the hashtags and figure out if it says AI somewhere. I'm like, is this true? Can a pit bull really be riding a bicycle? And then, yes, of course it is AI. But
Yes.
it looks so real.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is scary. Second question. Knowing what you know today, what would you go back and tell your 20-year-old self?
The level of care that you have, you think is a weakness. You are constantly trying to figure out how to care less, because when you care so much, you feel everything deeply on a really wild level. When you put a lot of effort into a video and it doesn't hit the goal that you guys had defined, you're going to beat yourself up for it. And you're going to be sad and so disappointed. And you're going to try to figure out a way to care less so that you don't feel that as much. And then one day you're going to realize that actually the fact that you care so much is your differentiating factor in your career. It's the reason why you have accomplished what you have accomplished despite barely graduating high school in a really tiny town in Washington State. For years, I'd try to consume podcasts where people would talk about caring less, not about what other people think, but on the outcome of things. I would lead a meeting with my team and not show up exactly as I want. And I just, not even would beat myself up, that's unhealthy, but I would just feel so like disappointed.
In yourself?
Yeah, I don't think that comes from a bad place. I think that comes from a level of care that is really intense. If I have a conversation with somebody on my team where I'm sharing a new idea and I realize that I didn't frame it in the proper way and all it's doing is overwhelming them, I feel like shit.
Because you knew you could have done better or do
Right.
more.
Yeah. And for so many years, I thought, wow, this is a huge weakness of mine. I will never be able to be successful because of this. Because a lot of people that I look at as successful don't care like that. They have something go wrong and they just move on. And that's great for them. That works for them. But it's my competitive advantage. It's why I feel compelled to do everything I can to over-deliver for our clients. Because I care on a really deep level. It's why if Trevor and I have a conversation, a one-on-one, and I can tell that something I communicated didn't come across the way I intended, I will ask him 30 minutes later, hey, can we hop back on a call? I need to clarify this.
The fact that you have that level of awareness and you can really have that like tough conversation with yourself is big. That's growth mode right there.
There's plenty of reasons, I'm sure, as to why those things are the case, you know, weird childhood, whatever experiences and stuff. But yeah, I will say the other thing that I got, and I give him so much love because he deserves a lot of it. Gary, in my opinion, championed for young men who have big ambitions and are a little bit more aggressive or whatever. He also championed it being really cool to be self-aware. In a world where 99% of characters in his space that talk with, I hate this term, but for lack of a better term, like an alpha male mindset, he is that, 100%. But he also talks about how cool it is to be self-aware and to be kind and to care. And so I think I had my environment and conditions, but I also had my mom and Gary at different times in my life. My mom growing up, encouraging all of those things. And then Gary, once I worked for him, obviously encouraging them. But from afar, I looked up to him. He was a role model of what success was as a man to me. And seeing that he put self-awareness on almost like a pedestal, I think allowed me to feel the freedom, or permission is the word I was looking for, the permission to try and develop those same things and traits in myself.
Yeah. I think self-awareness is so powerful. I didn't have self-awareness, like true self-awareness, until after I got married. And I realized when you get married, you grieve your former self. You move forward with in one flesh, your partner, right? And so the life of you is gone. And it is the life of us now. Well, and this is just my belief.
No.
And this is my belief. And I struggled with that for the first 5 years. And then when I finally let it go, life was wonderful.
Wow.
And then this sense of self-awareness and growth just sprinted to the point where, because growing up I had a little bit of a difficult childhood. So I didn't have that self-awareness until I got married, until I could see, until somebody, my husband, could open my eyes to that. But there's so many people who just shut down awareness because that is where you're going to see that, you're going to hear the echo, and you're going to be in front of that mirror. You're going to finally see yourself.
Yeah. Shout out your husband. That's awesome.
He's a good man.
Sounds like it.
He's the best thing in my life. Let me ask you the last question. What does success look like to you?
I feel like I've been asked this before, and I don't remember what my answer was. Here I am being that person on podcast, being inconsistent with answers. But what I would say is, I think success for me is constantly reverse engineering how I run my life based on the priorities that I have at the time. This could change at any moment, but to date, I think I have done a really good job of identifying what my actual priority was, not what I want to tell myself, not what I want to tell others to show them how good of a person I am, despite what anybody else thought, being very clear on what my priority was, what I cared about the most in that season, and then orienting my life around that. In some circles, really cool to say. In most, this is an embarrassing thing to say. For the majority of my life, up until just a couple years ago, the number one thing in my life was work and my career. Not any sort of faith, family, friends, none of that came first. My work came first, for better or for worse. And I would say, you don't know what the alternative would have been, but if work comes first, that means you're not investing in friends and family, right? I think I also accomplished what I've been able to accomplish to date because of that. But in the last couple of years, things have started to shift, and my family has taken precedent. That is the most important thing in my life now. And I can't tell you why that's shifted. I could probably take a couple weeks and really think about it, but I haven't done that. All I know is over the last couple of years, suddenly started to care more about my evenings with my girlfriend Kat, and recently we, like a year and a half ago, we got a little puppy named Bugsy. And that's what my core family is right now, right? And I just suddenly started caring about that more and getting more fulfillment out of that, sometimes even than the work I was doing. And so I just started noticing like, okay, I'd like to orient my time differently. I still work really hard. I love my work. But now I am very intentional with doing my best, and it doesn't happen every morning, but like we like to start our days with a walk. We like to end our days with a walk. Right now, we're like wildly obsessed with Game of Thrones. Yes, we are 10, 12 years late, but we're here.
At least you're watching it.
Yeah, it's incredible. And like us setting aside, like time aside to make dinner together and then watch, that's become a really big priority for me. And who knows, things might shift and evolve or whatever. I'm also, the last couple of years, I've been really big on trying to call my mom and talk to her more often, checking in with my sister and communicating with her more frequently. Because for the first, I'd say 15 years in my career, really like the first probably 13, I was ruthlessly focused on work and would always turn down family events, friend hangouts as much as I could to pursue work. But that shifted. And so this is my incredibly long-winded way of answering your question of, I think for me, success is knowing what I care about the most in that season and orienting my life around that.
Isn't it interesting, our lives, how they change as we enter these different seasons in our lives? And I think lives, we have to look at them as seasons because we're not always in the same chapter or season. But obviously, do you find more happiness in your home life than you do work, or what is it?
I think I experience different types of fulfillment
Okay.
in it. And I think when I feel fulfilled is when I get my byproduct of happiness. I view happiness as like a byproduct of other things for me. I enjoy, I'm not like crazy about it, but I enjoy working out. I, throughout my whole life, have gone through seasons where I'm really into it and then seasons where I don't go to the gym at all. And I just find that I get more fulfillment when I go to the gym, even just a little bit, and it increases my happiness. Historically, and this is wild to say, but I'm doing my best to be as transparent and vulnerable always as I can be. There was many years where family time didn't bring me that level of fulfillment. I'd be sitting there hanging out with family, even growing up like in high school, I'd be sitting around and I'd be thinking about the training video for Flex Lewis that I was going to edit next or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And I was excited about that. And then I know it shifted because sometimes at the end of my day during my last meeting, I'm like, I can't wait to go for a walk with Kat and Bugsy. And so that's just a shift that's happened. I wouldn't say that I get more out of either anymore. Now I would just say they both provide equal amounts of fulfillment, but it's a different kind of fulfillment.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. For years, I was obsessed with work, and in 2022, I was the #1 independent agent at my office. But there was a cost to it.
Oh, yeah.
There was a cost, and I ended up having to shift and say, is that cost worth it? And the answer was no.
Yeah.
Once, again, going back to that self-awareness and like really dissecting what's important, you really do see what is important. Because the thing is, personal branding, content, real estate, it's all going to live on when we pass. But what are we going to leave behind with the people that we love when we pass? Because we will one day.
Yeah.
So not to get too deep on that.
No, 100%. I agree. But the thing that I should just mention real quick, because Trevor and I were actually having a lot of conversation around this. I'm in this new season where even with my work, I'm trying to create more space. So I'm trying, when possible, we're in our first year of business, so there's not a ton of this, but I try to carve out time to go for a walk or a ride. I love riding my motorcycle, to think and try and solve problems in the business or for our clients, right? And I'm also trying to spend more time with family and friends and do some travel here and there and all those things. But one thing that I realized the other day that I want to be very careful of is that's the season that I am in now. I'm never going to be the guy that goes around saying you need to work hard. I believe there's a lot of dangers in being that kind of character online. There's a lot of implications that come with it, right? It's giving a lot of advice with no input from all the people watching it. But what I will say is what I did. And there are some people out there that follow my career and have ambitions of going on a similar path. And the thing that I don't want to make the mistake of that a lot of creators and people do is they reach a certain season in their career where how they orient their time has to change. If I was still doing 16, 17, 18-hour days like I used to on Team Gary, our business would not be where it is right now because the type of work that I do now does not lend itself to that. But there's no way around it. I would not be where I am without those 16, 17, 18-hour days. And that's something that I'm like trying to strike a balance between. I want to make sure it's very clear, like, I didn't go on a walk with my girlfriend in the morning and at the end of the day for the first 15 years of my career. I didn't, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that anybody should follow that. It's just, it's what we were talking about earlier. It's not modeling what somebody is doing in the season that you're looking at them in. It's what did they do on their way to that point.
Yeah.
So I just want to add that clarity to make sure there's no misunderstanding.
That's good. And that's the only way to really gain experience and credibility is to do the thing. And sometimes some of us work a little bit harder at it than others, but totally okay.
Yes.
As long as we reach the season and we're finally where we are. But Caleb, I want to say it's been an honor talking with you, learning from you, just really understanding on a different level what a brand is. And you explained it so well. And I can attest that your content works because I took fast and quick, effective action on it.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Where can people find you?
Depending on where you're listening to this, if you're listening to this on Spotify, there's a couple other interviews that I've done. If you're on YouTube, there's some content that we've made on YouTube. I don't like to be pushy, but if you're asking where to go, I would suggest the 6-hour free course on YouTube.
I would suggest that as well. It was really good.
Yeah, I think if you watch that, most of you would never, ever need to even work with me. You can just take action on that, and you will accomplish a lot of things that you would like to accomplish.
Well, I'm sure, I know for a fact, once they do that course, they're going to want to work with you. It was an excellent free course on YouTube, 6 hours, guys. It was really good. Caleb, I'm going to make sure that we put all your contact information for social media and where they can get a hold of you in the show notes. But I want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. I hope you guys got a lot of value from this. Until next time, we'll see you in the next episode.